And I will say present is myself, Dave Tassoni, Angela Fellers, David Kelly, Mr. Kevin McCarthy,
Present.
Jim Webster. I did see Bert Girl. He's there. And a guest in the audience there is John Butita, County Board member. We have our Administrator Patrick Thompson. We have from our State's Attorney's Office, John Gilberti, our County Engineer, Carlos Molina, and we have a guest here, speaker, Mr. Michael Castronovo. And seeing no other people on the screen there, I would ask for approval of minutes from the December 19th or December 15th, 2020 minutes. Any corrections, questions, comments, deletions of that item? I would move to approve those minutes.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Girl. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those minutes are approved. I see our County Board Chairman, Mr. Shirelli, is in the background. Mr. Paularina is in the background. And with that, seeing that we have a public comment from Mr. Castronovo, I would read our public comment disclaimer. And it goes on to say, this is the time when we invite the public to address the Public Works Committee with issues and concerns. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Personal attacks or inappropriate language of any sort will not be tolerated. A maximum of 5 speakers will be heard on a first come basis with sign up at the meeting. Speakers may not address zoning matters which are pending before the zoning committee, zoning board of appeals, or the county board. Personal matters or pending threatened litigation may not be addressed in open session. An individual may speak a maximum of 3 times per calendar year on the same topic. This prohibition shall include the repetition of the same topic in a statement on what is purported to be a different topic. After acknowledgement by the chair, please stand, which we're on Zoom, so you don't have to stand, but please state your name and thank you for your cooperation. And at this time, I would turn the floor over to Mr. Michael Castronovo and let you know, based on our rules and ordinances, you have 3 minutes to speak. And just please state your name for the record, sir.
My name is Michael Castronovo, and I've not done Zoom before, so if it's awkward or something like that, please let me know. Should I just go ahead?
Yes, sir. You have the floor, and
okay.
We'll be like I say, we'll give you as much time as possible.
No, I'll try for 3 minutes. I live at 6812 Harrison Avenue. I'm here to request that my full access to Harrison Avenue be restored. I presented to you many documents that I will refer to in this presentation. In 1993, I purchased my Harrison Avenue property. Through negotiations with IDOT, Winnebago County, and Senator Dave Severson, I also purchased the access rights previously acquired by the state of Illinois for my property. In 2008, a major road construction began on Harrison Avenue. During that construction, the median in front of my home was removed for over 6 months. While the median was removed, I approached Winnebago County directly and through my rep at the time, John Eckberg, and requested that the access to the median stay open. When the formal resolution was presented in 2009, while the median was still open, only the paper titled Resolution 93 CR 288 was provided to my county board rep through this document. Though this document states that I purchased the access rights previously owned by the state of Illinois, it did not go into detail as to the completeness of the access rights. Because of that, some county officials claim that I purchased a write-in, write-out only. The motion narrowly failed. It actually failed by 4 votes at the county board. This past year, while going through old paper files in my home, I found the other document titled Conveyance of Access Rights. This document, also from 1993, was signed by the county board chairman and county clerk, and it clears up any misrepresentation. It confirms that the access I purchased is the complete access owned by the state of Illinois. That includes, quote, all existing, future, and potential easements or rights of access from the above described property to Harrison Avenue, unquote. Clearly, my access is the entire street. Why this document was not given to John Eckberg in 2009, I do not know. It should have been, since county officials have a fiduciary responsibility to provide it. I understand that someone from the state's attorney's office has reviewed a document from the 2011 federal First Amendment lawsuit where the judge claimed I misinterpreted what I own. However, it is crucial to note the judge only saw the same CR 288, which has the limited description. He never saw conveyance of access rights, that document wording. Therefore, the judge's opinion should be considered as, quote, not fully informed ruling, unquote. Conveyance of access rights should be considered as proof of newly discovered evidence in any current or future decision by the Public Works Department and Winnebago County. Therefore, I'm respectfully requesting that the county reopen the access to which I'm entitled for safe passage to all of Harrison Avenue. Thank you. And I'm open to questions.
And think it like that. I will entertain, like I say, understanding that this item, you know, like I say, it won't be settled here at this committee on this discussion, this level, but I am open to allowing Mr. Casanova to do a Q&A for a few extra minutes if any board members have any questions. And like I say, I will extend an arm reach length to allowing him to ask a question, or board members to ask theirs as well.
Thank you.
Seeing any question or comments from the committee? Seeing none and hearing none, I would say
there
Mr.
we go.
Casanova. Oh,
I'm
I'm
so
sorry, I
sorry.
hear someone.
Mr.
Ms. Keller,
Toscani,
go ahead.
yes. So thank you for speaking tonight, Mr. Castronovo. In preparation for tonight's meeting, I took a drive to the other side of town. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to stop my video because, okay. I took a drive and I did drive past the property. You said that you live at the property?
Yes, it had been rezoned last year to commercial neighborhood, and I live in the back side, and the front side can be used for small business purposes.
I noticed that there was a sign out front and that you had constructed a parking lot in front of the property. The building appears to be kind of like it appears to be a commercial building, not a residence.
Yes, if you were to drive around the backside, you would see it looks more like a residence on the back, more like a business on the front, and it's a hybrid. It's an unusual building.
Do you have access from the rear of the building to another street?
I do not.
I empathize with you because I live on a boulevard, so I can only access my home if I'm traveling south, and I have to do a U-turn at either end. So I actually did the U-turns, and you have the ability to do a U-turn a few hundred feet northeast and a few hundred feet west of you, correct?
Only a few. Well, yes, at the intersection of Carmen, if I'm coming from, as it were, Rockford and heading east, I would have to make an intersection at Carmen where I have to watch for traffic, of course, coming from Perryville and also from Carmen, two directions. If I'm heading west and I want to go east, I have to go down to safely do it to the intersection of Swanson Parkway, where there are 3 traffic directions that I have to watch for at one time to make a safe legal U-turn. Coming from Swanson, the other street, and then also from Harrison. So I got to juggle 3 cars at one time.
Yeah, and the property is also right in front of your property. That's a graded curve, correct? With a small median?
Yeah. It's very, very slight grade on. Are you talking about the road itself? Excuse me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just a very slight grade on the road, very slight.
Okay, so what is it that you're asking to be done?
Well, in 2009, that entire median had been removed. And at that time, I asked to just leave it open so that I could have that passage. It stayed open for about 6 months and there were no incidents, no problems. As it happens, and I'm going to a little more description here, the median in front of me starts to narrow because of the turn lane for Carmen Street. However, that turn lane is honestly so long that people very often mistakenly get in it thinking it's the turn lane for Perryville. So if you were to grant me that opening that I believe I have a right to, then it would probably be advantageous for the county and for safety's sake to build out a little bit of that median so that when people turn for Carmen, it's a little bit shorter of a turn lane. So they understand this is Carmen and the next one is Perryville. I see cars do that all the time.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Fellers. And as I said, I'm assuming there'll be some discussion here at this committee because we have a few new board members that maybe need to be brought up to speed as far as what the past entailed and all that. And I would just say at this time, Mr. Cashinova, thank you for attending the meeting and speaking what's on your mind.
Thank you for letting me talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I see legislation here, 21-01001. It's a resolution supporting the construction of a multi-use bicycle and pedestrian path on East Riverside Boulevard, east of Perryville Road, and I would so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gurl, and I see Mr. Butita, is he still on board here? Yes, Mr. Butita is here on board, and this was an item that is in his district or in his area, and he had brought this up for discussion. And Mr. Butita, if you'd like to give your a few minutes here and give your rationale onto this, I'd give you the floor, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this resolution is sponsored by Paul Arena and myself. Riverside Boulevard is the border between our two districts. So it's in my opinion that there's no pedestrian crosswalk of any type that goes across I-90 at Riverside. And I think there's a real need for it. But I'll just back up to say that I'm a big user myself of the recreational paths in our city. I think the Rock River Path is demonstrated what a valuable asset that's been to us. The Perryville Path, which is extensive in length, runs the length of my district and into several other districts also. And not in this weather, but in normal weather, I'm out there almost every day on that path. So I'm a big proponent of people having access to the activity of biking, walking, whatever. So the reasons I would support, I'm in favor of this, is obviously on the east side of I-90, we've got Costco, we've got the Rivet baseball stadium. We've also got the YMCA out there, and we have SportsCore, that huge facility, and the Mercy Hospital also. There's no way to get across. I attempted it once myself. You actually have to walk in a roadway if you want to get from west to east. So we're not far from the Perryville Path either. So making a line from the Perryville Path out to those facilities makes all the sense in the world to me as far as developing our path resources in our county. So I endorse it. I hope to get the opportunity to talk to everybody about it going forward. This resolution is basically an effort to kickstart the conversation and also to get an idea of what the cost is. There's no idea what the cost is right now to do a project like this. And then there's going to be numerous sources of funding out there, be it federal, state, possibly potentially even local. But I think we're looking for state and federal money to finance something like this. So we got to have an idea of what that cost is. This resolution authorizes the highway department to work those numbers up for us so that we can start moving forward and talking to our state and federal representatives about funding the project also. At that, I'll probably pass on to Paul Arena if he has anything to add to that.
Thank you, Mr. Butita. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I agree that there's value in providing our citizens access across our roadways. Just to be clear, question for Mr. Molina, the bridge itself over I-90, is that owned by us? Or is it the bridge itself is owned by IDOT, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Arena, thank you. No, the bridge is actually owned by the tollway. The state, that section of the interstate is tollway. So that's who we will have to go to ask, for permission, if you will. but also to find out if they have any plans to do any work on that bridge, so that maybe we can tack on to that. Because, the road itself, like Mr. Butita said, it is very narrow. I mean, there's no room for, not even a sidewalk. So the bridge itself would have to be widened.
Yeah, so I think it's a issue worthy of investigation. Obviously, there's a lot of issues to address and resolve before we can move forward, but I support Mr. Butita's initiative in taking these first steps, and I would appreciate the support of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And myself as committee chair, I've had a lengthy discussion with Mr. Butita. I'm very familiar with the area. I've had some discussions in the past few years, with the building of Mercy Health out there, that there's a lot of medical staff that live right across I-90 down Bell School there in townhouses and houses and things. And I would think they would utilize it, whether they jog, bike, or run to their place of employment or break time or whatnot. And like I say, I think what this resolution will do was we'll just get the ball rolling. Mr. Molina will investigate any funding sources and things. And I also, just for this committee too, maybe I just off the top of my head, I think it's Mr. Sosnowski's representative district out there. Maybe there's some state funding. I know Bike Pass and Prairie Pass and things are very popular. Maybe there's some monies out there, and do some investigating as far as what it would take to get a pedestrian path across that. And myself, I would support that. And I think it's a very good thing, and would ask for the committee's support as well. And with that, I would, any other comment or questions on this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Oh, Dave.
Wait,
I don't
I think
see
there's three of
nobody.
us. Mr. McCarthy, myself, and Mr. Kelly. I think all had our hands.
Well, your cameras are on still frame, so I don't see any interaction there.
Got it.
Okay, Mrs. Fellers, go ahead.
Okay, I had two comments. One is that I'm familiar with a plan to develop that area across from Mercy. It may have been as long as a decade ago, that was done by Spring Creek Development Group. So there may already be some studies on a bike trail, because I remember that it was supposed to be pedestrian and bike friendly. And I may be misremembering, but I believe that there was a bike trail. Also, the casino proposal that was for the area out there, I believe also had some bike and pedestrian trails that were there. So we may have some things that have already been done. And I just wanted to bring that to the attention of Mr. Molina, so that if those resources are there, he can reach out. That's my only comment. I'm fully in support.
Thank you, Mrs. Fellers, Ms. Fellers. And who else was out there in the gallery that would like to speak? I see Mr. Butita.
Yeah, and then we'll get to Kevin real quick. Yes, and Angela is correct. There is an existing path already out there, a network up pass that starts in front of the Costco and runs back through the Brevitz Baseball Stadium into the Mercy Core, the Sports Core complex, and even into the Y. So that structure is already there. It's in the ground. So it's just a matter of connecting the two ends. So I'm sorry, and I'll yield to Mr. McCarthy then.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butita. Mr. McCarthy, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you all. And just to piggyback pretty much what everyone was saying here this evening. Ironically, it was just a month ago, someone came forward to me that lives within the area talking about a bike path, and here we are discussing it. So I'll support it, whatever the next moves are from this point forward, Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Is there anybody there on screen or off screen that would like to speak to the matter?
Here, Dave.
Okay, Mr. Webster, go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add to that is that we don't forget, if you're looking for help, cooperation on this as far as funding and that, I think it's pretty important to go talk to Loves Park as well. Don't forget, we just gave them $280,000 a year for 6 years out of our host fee funds because of the Costco project and all of that, and helping them. And I think, turnabout is fair play, and perhaps they would have some skin in the game for this as well, because it would certainly benefit them. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Mr. Webster. And yes, Loves Park, our state representatives. Like I say, for myself, I drive through Madison, Milwaukee and such, and I see these pedestrian paths going over the tollways and the interstates. And I think it's very important for the people that would utilize them, and I'm all in favor of it. And with that, as I motion to approve and seconded by Mr. Earl, I believe, without any other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so I would say the resolution is approved unanimously. Thank you, folks. Moving on to other matters, budget amendments, change orders. Mr. Molina, do you have anything regarding those items?
No, I do not.
Okay, and moving on to reports, I would just take a minute here to maybe enlighten or give some information to those. Mr. Thompson, Ms. Fellers, Mr. McCarthy. I don't see Mr. Lindmark out there. Mr. Butita, just a couple minutes of insight to the item that Mr. Castronova brought forth this evening. The best of my recollection, it was 9 or 10 years ago that and excuse me if I'm not particular, but the state, or I believe it was the state, was doing a reconstruction and coinciding with the county based on that Harrison Avenue stretch, based on its conjunction with the I-39 interstate there. The state had monies invested, and the state had a lot to do with the engineering and the designation of how that road would be built. And at that time, based on the funds and the money and the engineering studies and design from the state, it was decided that median, and like I say, not in legal terms, but it was either not safe or not warranted or not in the scope of work. So the median in front of Mr. Castronovo's house was put back. And that was based on the engineering and the payment restrictions or protocol to have to do with the state. So at that time, the county went with the direction of the state to not create an egress access to his property for many reasons, for payment, either for liability, for some other things. And it was back when 8, 9, 10 years ago that Mr. Castronova brought forth a civil lawsuit to this county. And myself was involved in the federal litigation and went to federal court. And after a few years of a process, it was deemed by a federal court that his civil rights were not violated and his rights as to egress and access were not violated or infringed upon. So that was that back then, and based on the direction of the courts and the previous county engineer and the board, it was voted not to grant the access to that property. And like I say, in very layman's term, some of the things I remember, one of the things was that the state was paying for it, the state engineered it, and they said, this is how it has to be done. So we didn't deviate from that process. In other words, there's a median there now. I've heard discussions in the past that let's just say we decide, okay, we're going to cut the median out and give him access, and then there's a fatal car accident. We could very much be liable to that because it was our choice to allow that egress. And so those are some of the things. And then, like I say, I had conversations with some various board members, and my take on it is whatever legal advice or action that should be taken on the matter would come to me by way of the state's attorney's office, and that's what I would follow. But in my opinion, as it stands now, there's no action to be taken by this committee. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if I could, and Mr. Molina is there as well to back that up. So thank you. And with that, I would go on to Mr. Butita.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Well, we've had this discussion, but just so everybody knows, Michael Castronova is one of my constituents. So I'm well versed in what's going on. And I know him to be a very persistent person. as a result of dealing with him in the first 2 years of my term because of a zoning issue. But in any event, I would just say that to Mr. Tassoni's point about the state's attorney's office involvement, the whole issue is this one document that he claims was not available at his previous proceedings with the county or in the court system. I asked the state's attorney to look at that, make a judgment on that. And Charlotte Clerk got back to me claiming that the federal case more or less said that he did not have that access right. So whether or not this comes down to this document that he says he has now. Well, he does have it. I've seen it. And whether that's binding and legal on the county. So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm hesitant to give him advice or an opinion because of the legal ramifications that Mr. Tassoni talks about. So just be aware that he is my constituent. So I am following what happens here. I suspect that there's some potential for litigation, just knowing his persistence in the past. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to that or comment on that item?
Mr. Tassoni, may I ask a question of Mr. Vitita?
Yes, Mr. Arena, go ahead.
So John, has the gentleman taken this new document that he said he came across and had his own legal counsel review it? And has he received advice that it's relevant at this point in time?
He's told me that he has gotten legal advice and told it's a valid claim. The document is valid. That's what he's told me.
But Charlotte said that it's not.
She said that the wording of the federal case, that Judge Capalla, he dismissed the case, but in his decision, he claimed that he did not have the right to it. Now, what Mr. Casanova was just saying was that the judge didn't have the benefit of this document that he found. So, and Charlotte is laying the state's attorney's basis on the federal judgment. So that's where it's at right now.
Okay, thank you.
And I would ask Mr. Gilberti, are you online there?
Yes, I'm here.
John, thank you, sir. Could you give us your little 1-minute spiel on how you see this playing out or not?
Yeah, I talked to Charlotte about it actually today, and I've read the lawsuit, and us in this office, it's res judicata. Everything is subsumed in the 2011 decision by Judge Capalla, and we don't think the additional document that he has found would make any difference. Judge Capalla was very strong in his decision that said when buying back that access right, he is not entitled to full access. Rather, is only granted a reasonable means of ingress and egress, and he does have ingress and egress the west to a right turn. So that's the way Judge Capalla ruled. He talked about the resolution, and it's our opinion in this office that the document that Mr. Casanova has brought up has no bearing. It would be res judicata. It's subsumed in that lawsuit, and it wouldn't make any difference at this point. That's our opinion here.
Thank you, Mr. Gilberti. And like I say, just to recap on it, myself not being a law professor or whatnot, or an attorney, I just felt it was best left off to whatever his argument is or is pursuant would be best left towards a legal ramification, through the state's attorney's office and the courts, and not for us to decide what's right or wrong, and just take guidance from the state's attorney's office.
I agree.
Any other questions, comments on that item? Mr. Molina, do you care to add anything to that?
Since you asked, Mr. Tassoni, from the engineering standpoint, any full access on a road like Harrison Avenue, any full access is just asking for the, a chance of more accidents. There is quite a few other homes next to his driveway. So if he gets a full access, what's going to stop the next neighbor to ask for the same thing on Harrison Avenue? The document that he was talking about, and I'm also not a lawyer, but it does grant him access because what everybody needs to know is that there was a full median there since the 1970s when the state did the intersection. That's when, but there was his home was not there. So when he bought the home in 1993, he bought the access rights for $100. And again, all that it says there is to have access similar to the adjoining properties. And what they had was right-in, right-outs. So again, and like Mr. Tassoni said, when we did the project back in 2009 for Harrison and Perryville, that was federally funded. So we follow the guidelines for the length of turn lanes and things. So reducing the length, like one of those turn lanes, like Mr. Castronova suggested, that could be, that will be in violation of whatever the state standards are for turn lanes. So I would not recommend reducing the length of that turn lane going to Carmen, which is the next street to the east. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Molina. Any other questions or comments on that item?
If I may,
Yes.
just real quickly, I want to reiterate there that when the state designs these roads, first and foremost, when they do their engineering, their design work is safety. And so you put that access there and where his home is, there's a lot of traffic moving up and down Harrison there. And getting into his place there could cause a safety issue there. And once again, it opens the doors for all the neighbors to want the same thing in front of their properties. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. One other item that I'd like to speak to here, and I wish Mr. Billich was here because I'd like him to hear it. But for those of you that are here, I'd just like to give you a minute or two spiel on something that has been on my mind, and it's been a topic of mine, and it's sincere to me for the past 8 or 10 years. And since my tenure on the board here, 12 plus years, we received these host fee, tipping fees, whatever the proper terminology is, from the landfill, and it drags in from 2.5 to 5 million, 3 to 4 million, based on tonnage of garbage received outside the community, and then some. And so we get these monies from the landfill out there, and maybe 8-10 years ago, based on this conception, it was intended for economic development. And, I think if you ask 5 people what their interpretation of economic development is, you might get 5 different answers. One of my thoughts on economic development is that we have either the money or the ability to give access, to build new roads, take the Lowe's facility out there on Springfield, Harrison area. Maybe it's out in the I-39 Baxter area. And I'm sincere to roads. Yeah, I've been on Public Works Committee for 12 plus years. I built roads. I've been a part of it. And that's, sincere and close to me. And what I've pitched to many county board members and others over the years is that I'd like to see some of those host fee monies be dedicated to the Winnebago County Highway Department. And we've done that on a one-time basis, whether it be for emergency salt purchase or whether it be for emergency engineering services or a special project that was going on in the area. And what I'm, for the lack of a better word, is on a crusade to do for the rest of my tenure on this board. Who knows how long that'll be. But what I would like people to give consideration to and understand and do all your Q&A and investigating is what you need. But I would like for this committee to come up with a resolution and designating a portion of host fee monies, and just a number off the top of my head, would be $500,000 a year that would go into a specific fund that would help the Winnebago County Highway Department with their 80-20 matching funds. And just as a recap, our 80-20 matching funds say we have a $10 million road infrastructure program that needs to be done, and it's either federal or state matching funds. And if the county puts up its 20%, $2 million out of the 10 million, we can receive upwards of $8 million in matching funds from the state, the federal. There's various funds out there. Carlos could speak to them better. And that we would have monies in this fund that we would be able to say, yes, we've got our 20%, we've got our engineering study, we've got shovel-ready projects, and to put this money into a fund so that we're not behind, and so that in some fashion we're ahead of the game. And for me, I'm very sincere about the County Highway Department, about roads and infrastructure. And I would like to see this get steamrolled, and I'd like to get some support. And I would like to get this ball rolling so that we can get some committed dollars to a specific fund to help the County Highway Department secure these funds and look for some things that we can do down the next few years, the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and have some monies that we know are available so that we can commit to some of these projects. And I would turn the floor over to Mr. Webster because he has some documentation about where we stand with our long-term commitments out of the host fee funds. And in the next 1 to 5 years, there's some things that will be falling off of that as far as the timelines that we've committed monies for. And like I say, I did ask at our last meeting for a report from Mr. Thompson and our administration and finance people down there to just tell us where we stand with a financial balance, where we look to see how much money we're going to bring in, and what we might be able to designate for funds moving forward. And with that, I'm going to step away for 1 minute, but I would ask Mr. Webster to go over some of the documents that we talked about and just bring us up to speed of how you see the fund going. Thank you.
Okay, I'll give it a shot here. I stand behind Dave Tassoni, Chairman Tassoni's opinions about this. I've had my opinions for many years about the host fees and the way that we've spent that money. And we, the county, have been generous to a fault with that host fee money. And we've given long-term commitments to the city of Rockford for the BMO Harris, for the Rockford Park District, for the Board of Education, for another one for the Park District there. These are some of these: Rock Valley College, Rockford Airport, Economic Development Districts, Barbara Coleman, and on they go. And so some of these commitments go out for 15-year commitments. And so just using the Rock Valley College one, that was the original commitment for that is $1 million. And so for that one, we paid $50,000 a year, and that won't go away till the year 2033. And that's just one of them. Okay. One commitment we have to the airport there. The original commitment for that one, hang on to your seats there for that one, that's $10,979,109. Now our annual commitment to them goes through 2034, and that's $565,312 per year. Now, these commitments that we have, like I said, we've been generous to a fault with these, and this money under the heading of economic development and so forth has been, we've forgotten to take care of ourselves along the way. That's what I'm trying to say. And I've said this for a number of years. So we took care of everyone else. We helped everyone every which way we can. But in the process, we forgot about some of our own needs, and county highway being one of them. Some of our roads are in dire shape now, even our road shoulders, for example, unlike a lot of our 2-lane highways, our county highways, which we have over 300 miles of county highways. And they're getting so decrepit on the sides of the roads there because there's not even proper road shoulder up there anymore on a lot of our roads. You should know that our county highway has done such a good job of managing your money. And over the years, we've looked for every which way we could to save money. And this was headed up by Joe and now by Carlos. And he follows the same vein that Joe did, looking for every which way to save money. For example, a couple of years ago, we voted we looked at not striping the sides of the road, the right side of the road, one year, just to save, I believe it was $60,000 or $80,000. And so we looked for every which way there was to save money. So now it's come to the point where it is time to do something. I've been crying for years or complaining about it for years that we should have a set amount of money every year going to county highway fund. And Dave's idea, I really like that 20% matching. I think that's perfect. So right now, these long-term commitments that we have our long terms, and then we have our annual ones where people ask for 20,000 or 10,000 or 15 or whatever. So about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe it's been now, when things were kind of coming to a head about that once again, then I brought forth a resolution to the county board to put a moratorium on any more long-term commitments. And so we did for a couple of years there. We had a moratorium on that. And I think that helped put the brakes on things. You probably can't see it, but what Dave's talking about getting an update on this is from 2019. You probably can't see it too good, I don't think. But these are our long-term commitments that we have. And so some of them now, out of a dozen long-term commitments, 2 or 3 of them will go away this year. One went away last year. That was for $200,000 a year. And one went away this year. That was for $100,000 per year. And a couple more smaller ones like that went away. But these major ones are still there. And so we're still on the hook and we can't get out of those. We made that commitment. The only way we get out of paying those commitments is if we don't get any more host fee money. If the landfill closed down, the well dries up. Manna from heaven is gone. And so I think it wasn't thought out clearly enough from the very beginning that we should have kept some of this money ourselves. I'd like to clear up real quick too, the difference between host fees and tipping fees. There's always confusion about that. They're not one and the same. It is money coming from a landfill. Host fee money goes to your general fund. County can use that in any manner we see fit, not just for economic development. That's never been cast in stone. Tipping fees, on the other hand, are things for environmental. And so if the county chooses, the counties that are getting these funds can choose between tipping and host fee. If you choose tipping fees, then that money can be used for environmental things. And so they could use it probably for green things, so to speak. Maybe building the paths, for example. I don't know if that's considered environmental or not, but that's the difference between the two. We, the county, chose the host fees. So I think that the projection for the latest projection was 2019. And the projection then was like 3,700,000 or something like that. And I think it eclipsed that. That was what we were expected to get. Now, Dave is asking for the update for all of this. And I'm just as curious as he is to see what our projected income will be. This income from the host fees can change dramatically because these things are supposed to, the landfill has a projected life until 2034, I believe it is. But what could change that is that the intake at that landfill, that can change dramatically because the intake coming from the surrounding counties, the Collier counties and that is increasing all the time because the sources that they had to dump at before are closing one by one, and the state is not allowing any more new expansions. And so we'll have more pressure on our local landfill, and that could cause that to fill up before their projected date. And if that happens, once again, the fund dries up, the well goes dry. So I think why that money is available to us, let's not commit ourselves to any more long-term commitments on this. Our annual ones, you'll see a list of our annual ones if you, they'll be provided to us with this update hopefully. And you'll see that some of our annual ones are ones that people come in and ask for. And if it works out for them, they come in and they ask the county again, say, here's what we did with that $20,000 you gave us. We'd appreciate it if you could renew that for one more year. And we look at each one separately. And there's 2 or 3 dozen of those. But all of those don't come to more than, I think, I don't want to get misquoted on this, but I think all of those are less than $1 million combined. Whereas our other ones that we give on our long term are several $1 million per year. So out of that 3.7 million by the end of the year, we need to see what's left in that projected fund there. Last year, I think we used up most of that money down to the point where it was, I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe it was down to less than 600,000 or maybe 800. I don't recall. But I think it's worth a discussion about that, about the host fees. And I'm very interested to see what's going to come from our newest look at this and to see where we're at. And then we'll get the update on this and we can see that out of this dozen commitments that we have long terms, at least 3 of those will be gone. Okay.
Thank you, Jim, for that presentation from yourself. And just to add a little bit to that, like I say, I think this is something that, I mean, in my perspective, it's long overdue. I think the time is now. I know that we have been very generous in supplying host fee funds to other communities, other taxing bodies, other entities that have their own levies that are dealing with their own financial hardships. You know, and I don't have a problem with the $10,000 and $20,000 and $30,000 single commitments, whether it be to the water ski park, the sledding park, the organizations that help youth or jobs placements and those kinds of things. But on a long-term commitment, I feel the time is now to get some dollars going towards the highway department, because we have, if we had $200 million on hand, we could spend that in a year, 2 or 3 on our needs of our highway department. And I will take a little bit of comment questions from some of the others on board here, but I would first like Mr. Molina to give us your 2-minute spiel on where you seeing some financial help and these 80-20 matching funds to your department and what it would do for your operation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tassoni. You know, talking about 80-20 match, I mean, those are the federal projects. We also sometimes get funding for safety projects, and those are 90-10. So where would it go? I mean, just to give you an idea, Riverside Boulevard, that's a project that, you know, the area of Alpine Forest Hills, we've been talking about for years now. The preliminary estimate for that project is about $30 million. So when we get the funding, you know, if we do, which I'm hopeful that we will, you know, we still have to come up with $6 million of local funds. That's the 20%. You know, in the near future, we're going to have to do a couple of bridges. The Roscoe Road Bridge over the Rock River, that bridge alone could be $10 million. So that's another $2 million of local match that we would need to, somehow come up with. And those are immediate needs. We got a few other projects, just Alpine Road Bridge, that's a project that we're doing with this year. There's another $1 million in local match that we have to come up with, and so on and so forth. Those are the projects that we have, in the pipeline for, in the future. But again, there is a ton of bridges that, eventually, and when I say eventually, within the next 10 years, we're going to have to be looking at either rehabbing or replacing completely. And I don't have the total dollars, but it is anything that you can give us, especially when we're matching federal funds or state funds, it can go a long way. Although you were talking about Mr. Webster about resurfacing projects and shoulder. That is our plan. Our goal is to utilize as much, do as much resurfacing as possible, so that we can correct some of the safety concerns that we have in all those rural roads. But as you can see, Perryville Road, south of State Street to Harrison Avenue, that was built when Cherry Valley Mall, was constructed. So that was about 1974. So we're talking about 40-year-old road that is in pretty bad shape. The estimate to redo that section of Perryville is about $20 million. So, so what we have been doing, it's patching. That's all we can afford at the moment, for roads like that. Perryville Road north of State Street is already 30 plus years old, and so on and so forth. Eventually, we're going to have to do something with all those roads.
And thank you, Mr. Molina. And I would just add to that, that if we could secure some host fee funds to help with these 80-20 matching funds or 90-10 matching funds, it would free up monies internally for the highway department to do more of maintenance and do more of, incidental things throughout the year. And just to give them some freedom, to do some more in-house things and maintenance and rehabilitation things, on top of what we're asking for here. And with that, I saw a few hands and questions. Miss Fellers, go ahead, please.
I spent yesterday talking to a panel with the Biden transition team and their permanent team for intergovernmental projects, and talking about the money that's going to be coming from the federal government and what is part of the plan of the next administration. And one of the things that they kept hammering was unencumbered funds and shovel ready. And so I'm in full support of this. I think that it's a good first step in creating a perpetual and sustainable source of infrastructure funds. As we are recovering from the current economic downturn, one of the best things we can do is to invest in infrastructure. If we're looking at an 80-20 or a 90-10 match, any dollar that we put forward not only gets the benefit of the matching funds, we know that there's about a $7 impact for every dollar spent on infrastructure when it's performed by skilled local labor. And so I'm in full support of any money that we can dedicate to any kind of infrastructure ongoing and perpetual funding of infrastructure specifically.
Thank you, Ms. Fellers. Is there anybody else out there? Mr. Webster, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on something you brought up there. These host fee money that we've dedicated. One of the things that I think is the most, I don't know, it's aggravated me, is that a lot of this money we have given away to other taxing bodies, other entities that have their own tax levies. And so when we look at it, we've given the money to the city of Rockford. We've given money to the Rockford Park District, Rock Valley College, the airport. All of them have their own tax levies. And so when we look at this to see how much that they're garnering from their tax levies, and we don't get that much that people think we do. People will scream every year when they get their tax bill. They're going, look what you SOBs did now, because that envelope says County of Winnebago on it, right? So I've sat down with many of my constituents and I pointed out to them, look at what you're paying to the County of Winnebago. Now I'm going to use the Park District, for example. If those of you that live in the city, look at your tax bill, and you will see that within a few dollars every year, within just a few dollars, the money that you give to the Park District is almost equal to the County of Winnebago. And so the Park Districts, they have one singular focus. They have some nice parks in that. So they got one singular focus, and that is the parks. We, on the other hand, with an equal amount of money that they get for parks, with that equal amount of money, we have so many services. We're spread out so thin across the board. Employees alone, the county has in the neighborhood of 1,000 or so employees at last count. And then we have, once again, we have our highway department, we have River Bluff, and we have animal services, we have the courts. My gosh, we have the undertaker, or the, you know what I'm saying? We have so many different things that we have to spread that money out on. And so I think what I see coming down the road, and I've spoke to Chairman about this as well, is these other entities now, some of them are in dire needs too. And I can envision them coming back to the till, coming back to us and asking for more. And that just doesn't sit real well with me when I have other taxing bodies coming, asking us to help them get out of their hole that they're in when we ourselves are struggling as well. So that's my 2 cents worth on that.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. And I'd like to extend to Mr. Gurl and Mr. Kelly, if you'd like to add to this discussion or how your thoughts or feelings are regarding this matter.
I'll go real quick, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gurl.
Yep, thank you. So yeah, like yourself, Mr. Chairman, I've been around for a little while and I've seen what we do with the host fees, where they go. Most of these projects aren't to help out a municipality through hard times. They actually go to a project that needs funding over periods of years that are multi-million-dollar projects, such as the BMO, the reconstruction of that, the airport AAR, and also the airplane mechanics school out there with RBC. These were multi-million-dollar projects that are good for our region. But as it's been said, the county has always put itself last and others first. And with the 80-20 and the 90-10 matches, these are projects that we can actually get done and get the engineering going and know that we have the funding there. So when the engineering is finished, when we go to get these monies, everything is in place. And Mr. Molina said it perfect with the Prairieville Road in the near future needing to be replaced at a tune of, $30 to $60 million, depending on what you do and what you don't do. The county is going to be at least $100 million short of where it really should be in a 10-year infrastructure plan. So we have really not behooved ourselves to react and not to actually look at the future and what we do and how we fund ourselves going forward. As with the water department, that fees pay for installation, they pay for upkeep, they pay for the maintenance. But the water department, in its wisdom years back, never put into a fund in place to actually pay for these repairs, but they relied yet on fees to pay for these repairs. So if we can just do a little bit of planning right now to invest for the future, we will not have to impact our residents with fees, taxes, and whatnot to pay for infrastructure or any other repairs, because we can actually fund ourselves now for tomorrow. But we have to do that now. We should have did that years back, but the past is the past. But we have to look at what we can do now for the future. So I will stand behind this plan 100%. Our host fees are limited to a certain time period, unless if we do something about that. And, I'll be bringing up a conversation with that real quick with our current chairman and the county board on what we can do to extend the landfill, actually bring in more dollars into the county, and be environmentally sound and actually provide jobs out there. So I'm excited what we can do out there, but we have to think about the future now. So I'll stand behind this and support it 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Girl. Mr. Kelly, I haven't heard from you tonight. I always look forward to hearing your little spiel on how you think things should go. You got anything to add, sir?
Yeah, I do. The landfill does have a limited life, maybe 15 years on the outside at $500,000 a year. That ain't a whole hell of a lot of money. And it's not going to solve anybody's financial problem. Now, we typically do run a balance in the host fee. I think it's typically somewhere around $3 to $4 million. And when we need matching funds, we can always approach the county board with a request for matching funds. And I think we'd probably get it, with 80-20 or 90-10. As far as your proposal to extend the landfill, Bert, I'd had a friggin' rebellion on my hands.
No, and I'm not talking about expansion. I'm actually talking about doing trash in a different way and repurposing it and turning it into a useful product that we can resell, such as biofuels, jet fuels, construction material, carbon black. There's a huge chemical process that is out there that people are using in other countries and out west that is turning their trash and their plastics into biofuels, diesel, and jet fuels, and actually turning it back into carbon to where it came from. Now, these materials are not really expensive, but they're very useful in everyday products. So not only can we not put the trash in the landfill, but we can take that trash and turn it into an actual product that can be sold, can be used, and money can be brought back into the county. I'm not talking about expanding the landfill at all. I'm actually talking about the reverse, taking the trash and making a useful product that can be sold. So I'll be bringing forward the information and just kind of give some details on what I am thinking. Other communities are doing this, but they're doing it out west, where they're more forward thinking than it seems to be in the Midwest. But it is a lucrative process. Initial investment, $5 to $10 million into a plant. Your return investment is anywhere from 3 to 5 years on your initial investment. So if we can invest $10 million, recap that in 3 to 5 years, it's really a great deal, not only for us, but for our residents and for the environment in a whole. So I'm not talking about expanding the landfill at all. I'm talking about investing, and I'm talking about hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs out of this. So.
Thank you, Mr. Girl.
And I'm hoping one day to see the Twin Peaks being a ski resort.
There'll be some short runs.
I would like to ask Mr. Butita and Mr. Arena, as non-members of this committee and maybe not so up to speed or in tune or maybe sincere as to what we go through on this committee and such as the needs of the highway department, if you would like to, I'd just like to hear your take on what you've heard this evening. Mr. Butita.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So Carlos caught my ear there. Earlier, I said the Perryville bike path runs through my district. So does Perryville. So, and that's a major road in our community, and it runs, the length of my district. So I have to pay attention to that. I'm not a member of this committee, but I would support a resolution on the board floor to build that type of revenue source that you're talking about for the 80-20. And I think I would just add that I think Carlos can probably confirm that we're making an extension on the Perryville bike path this year. And I believe that's an 80-20 deal also. So there are, that 80-20 is a good deal, and I got to support anything that would help my district, roads or paths. So I'd be in favor of it.
Thank you, Mr. Batita. Mr. Arena, would you have any comment on that item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully support this idea. I think anytime that you can leverage your dollars, by 500%, it's something you have to give serious consideration to. And as a former member of Economic Development Committee over the past 2 years, I've seen some of the investments we made, and although those projects are worthy, they don't have the dollars that we invested wouldn't have the same level of impact as these 80-20 or 90-10 types deals that you guys are talking about here. And I fully agree that roads and infrastructure are economic development. It invites industry to our area. So Mr. Tassoni, you may want to consider connecting with Mr. Billich and maybe conducting a joint committee meeting of the two, and so that the members of economic development can weigh in on making that commitment of host fee dollars for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arena. And yeah, as I've seen, I just saw a little snippet about early voting in the city of Rockford. I believe it's this spring that the extension of the 1% sales tax is coming up for the city of Rockford. And there again, that 1% sales tax with the city of Rockford has allowed them to do tenfold in road improvements over the last 8, 10, 12 years since it's been in effect, because when they're bringing in $1, they're getting $1's worth of service and construction instead of bonding those projects out where maybe they're only getting 50 cents on $1. So like I say, this has been something that has been one of my staples of endeavors here for many, many years. And if Mr. Thompson, are you in the airwaves out there, sir? Maybe, maybe not. But with that, hello.
Yep, I'm here, Dave.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thompson. And for whatever input you and your office and administration may have, like I said, I did bring it up that I'd just like an overview of the host fees and where we stand as far as funds and balances and commitments. And I would ask, based on behalf of this committee and the sentiment that I've heard, that you yourself and Mr. Molina would work together, and along with myself and the Economic Development Committee, to bringing forth a resolution, either co-sponsored by Public Works and Economic Development, but moving forward in a fast-paced scenario on what needs to be done to bring forth the resolution to this board and give presentation for requesting $500,000 of host fee funds to go into a matching fund account for the highway department's needs based on federal and state match.
Yes, we can go ahead and do that, but I just wanted to alert the Public Works Committee that I fully support transportation. I started my career in transportation, so that's a big part of our community and the infrastructure. But we're going to be having a discussion in the very near future regarding other capital infrastructure needs throughout the county. We just had department heads submit their capital improvement requests over the past several weeks, and we're going to be bringing that forward real soon to the county board. And one of the suggestions or one of the recommendations being made is to support debt service fees through a bond issue, but to pay some of those debt service fees through a revenue source, and the host fee revenues is one potential source. So I don't want to get too far out in front of the committee or county board regarding this issue, but this will be coming forward fairly soon for discussion regarding county-wide capital infrastructure needs, which are sorely needed countywide. So it's not just our transportation infrastructure that we need to address. We have many other capital investment needs in the county that have not been, I don't want to say they've been neglected, but we just haven't addressed it. And that was one of my goals when I came here, was to begin a capital improvement plan and a funding source to fund it. And this is going to be a long range plan. It's not a 1 year or a 2 year. We're looking out 5 years. So I support 100% what the committee's talking about, and I'm a big proponent of good transportation system, but we have other needs as well. So I think we're going to have to kind of put the jigsaw pieces together of this puzzle, and transportation's a big part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And I myself, I understand there's many needs out there within this county, and myself, yeah, I could be on board with other. One of the things I've thought about, if there's a bonding need for demolition or repurpose of the public safety building, yeah, maybe there's some host fee funds that can offset those bonds and all that. But with all due respect, Mr. Thompson, for 12 years, I've been on this board talking about the need for economic development funds to go and help with the county highway department's needs. And I am very, very, very close, if not there, to not supporting any other funding source through the host fees until the county highway department receives its. So that's where I'm at, because I've been going down this road for 12 years. I understand there's many more needs, but for me, the time is now, and this is something I'd like to pursue. So just be it on the record that I'm not in favor of anything else until I get what I want. That's where I stand. Thank you. And would anybody else like to add to this discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Tizoni, Angela Fellers.
Fellers, go ahead.
I am a member of the Economic Development Committee and would be happy to sponsor a bill, or sponsor the resolution in the Economic Development group. So if you want to talk to me, and we'll talk to Jazz and make sure it goes through there as well. I'd like to ask that we take into consideration the equity and impact of any projects that are funded by the additional host fee money that would be allocated toward this. I appreciate and empathize with Mr. Webster's comments about a lot of the money going to municipalities and separate taxing bodies. As a representative, I have 35 people in my entire district that don't live within the city proper of Rockford. So I am the county board representative for a major district in Rockford. And it's important to me that being that the city of Rockford generates more than 50% of the money that goes to the county, despite being just less than 50% of the population, that we would be considered as well as non-city of Rockford areas in any kind of spending and infrastructure. And I know that we are, but I just wanted to remind the committee of that Rockford is Winnebago County as well. And I would also ask that we consider in future discussions reserving some of our budget, not only for the highway department, but also for the expansion of broadband and fiber. And that Mr. Molina, when he's looking into additional projects, if the hole is open, that we throw fiber into it. Those are my only other comments.
Thank you, Ms. Fellers. And like I say, to those still online here, and like I say, I do understand that Mr. Billich needs to be part of this conversation, as well as the Economic Development Committee. But for 12 plus years, I have sat in the background and I have voted in favor and supported many of items that I was against that came out of the host fee funds. And this is something that I have brought at a snail's pace and has picked up speed and is a snowball. And regarding these monies that out of the host fees that need to be committed to the highway funds, I'm taking off the gloves, and this is my last ditch effort to make this happen. And with that, any other comments or questions from the
Yes,
committee?
Mr. Chairman, Kevin McCarthy here.
Yes, Mr. McCarthy, go ahead.
Yes, just a question I have, simple, and I believe Mr. Webster touched on this, where that we're going to be getting an updated list, or can we obtain an updated list of who's receiving the host fees?
Yeah, at our last board meeting, I requested administration to, and like I say, with respect to them being new to the board here in the community, I believe Mr. Webster dropped off some documents supporting, our commitments, our one-time commitments, our long-term commitments, when the deadlines are to various entities that we've committed monies to. So I would expect, within due time, that let them investigate those items and bring us a report as far as what our fund balance is, what our long-term commitments are, what our one-time commitments are, and maybe a projection for the next year or two is where we see this host fee fund being. And like I say, I understand you got to know where the money's coming from and how much is there, but just let it be known. This is something that I've pursued for many, many years, and I've told a lot of people, yes, I'm in favor of it hesitantly, but the day has come where this is something I'm sincere about, and to no end, I'm going to pursue it. So
Well, I'm sure this conversation this evening is rather noteworthy. I think we're all on board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Any other questions, comments from anybody else on screen here? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Chairman Shirelli had his arm
I'll
up.
move.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Tassoni. I really appreciate this conversation. It's been long overdue to come up with a strategic plan and a sustainable plan for our infrastructure needs. I applaud you and the committee for having this discussion. We all know the importance of it. This is going to be a heavy lift with their state representatives, our MPO that we have, that we currently pay money to belong to, that we receive funding from the state and federal government. We are going to be coming forward, Chairman, with a full report on the host fees. I'm glad you brought that up because it is on our list to do. Dave Rickard, our CFO, is preparing that. It would either be on our next county board meeting or the one soon following that one. So I want to make sure everybody knows I am fully committed to our infrastructure in our community and finding a sustainable funding source to make sure that this happens, and including the host fees. And we have, like our administrator said, Mr. Thompson, a lot of capital needs in this community for our county. But you have a chairman here that fully supports what you're doing in this conversation. And we will be bringing forward some more information about what Mr. Girl was talking about, waste to energy plan. We are currently talking with several different companies that do waste to energy that will be able to bring a sustainable revenue stream that will outlive the landfill. Hopefully that we'll be bringing that forward soon. So I applaud Mr. Girl in thinking in those terms, because it's a great way that we have to get into the future here and stop thinking about how we treat this garbage of ours in the same similar manner that's been done for centuries. They move into the future and have a real moonshot at doing something good with our garbage and converting it to revenue. Like you said, diesel and other products. I applaud you on that, Mr. Girl, for bringing up that conversation. We have so many different needs in this community, in this county, and we have to have a strategic plan going forward so it's sustainable. So hopefully we're going to continue these conversations. I know I will be, and with your help in this committee and with the Economic Development Committee, we will lift this heavy burden on all our shoulders and get it done with ease. So I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just in closing, and like I say, for the past dozen years or so, I've pursued it and caved in and said, well, maybe next year, and pursued it and caved in and said, maybe next year. And this has gone on for a dozen years or so with myself. And I just feel the time is right. And the old saying goes, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I'm going to do a lot of squeaking. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Whatever we do, we just have to make the landfill not stink.
Exactly. Right.
I agree with you, sir. All right, folks. I appreciate your valuable time this evening and all the questions.
Carlos, Carlos wants to speak.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mr. Molina, I see your hand up, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to give I know it's getting late, but I wanted to give a quick update, some quick updates.
Yes,
As of-
sir, you have the floor.
Right, as of last Friday, we have used about 4,500 tons of salt, which is 30% of what we have budgeted. We have used about 12% of overtime. That's about $23,000 of what's budgeted. I wanted to give you an update on a couple projects. As I said earlier, the Alpine Road Bridge over Forest Road, we plan to go out for bids in March. The Perryville Road bike path extension that Mr. Bitita mentioned, that goes from Hart Road to 173. We're going to be going out to bid in April. We also have a couple of culverts on Gleesman Road. Those are, we're planning to go out to bid sometime in June, the middle of the summer. We have the Rockton Road project resurfacing and widening from the village of Rockton to Meridian Road. That's about 5 miles. I'm looking for sometime in the spring to go out for bids on that. We are using the Rebuild Illinois funds for that project, which is similar to MFT, but is from a different source from the state. We also have on our general maintenance, that we do every year. We're gonna do that letting in March. Also, I wanted to let you know for those of you that are in that district, the Cherry Valley Township Commissioner has asked us to, as you know, we do engineering for all the townships, the 14 townships in the county. They have asked us to help them out with design and bids for actually what I consider a pretty ambitious resurfacing program for the township. They have about 6 miles of road that they want to do this year, and that's Baxter Road from Mulford to Perryville, Perryville Road from Baxter all the way up to Mill Road, in the village of Cherry Valley, and also Linden Road from Perryville to about I-39. That's about where their jurisdiction ends. So that's about 6 miles of road for a township. That's a pretty ambitious project. So we're going to be doing that for them. And, as far as the bids, we're going to go out for bids on that sometime in early spring. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Mr. Molina. And I see Mr. Arena's hand up. Go ahead, Mr. Arena.
No, I was just scratching my head. Nope.
That's a freeze frame. I see you're on freeze frame. So the last I saw was something like that. But, like I say, I would say thanks to everybody for your questions and comments and your support or their lack of. But, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your efforts, and stay safe. And like I say, God bless everybody here. Was there a motion to adjourn out there from someone?
me.
Mr. Webster moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Yay.
I second by 2 or 3 of us.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Great conversation. See you guys soon.
Thanks, Bert. Have a good one.
Yep. See you, Dave. See you, Jim.
Bye, everybody.